So if you think about it, communism was a psyop, okay? A tool used by the elite, by the nobility, to make the movement of democracy, socialism, and liberalism illegitimate. Okay, this is his propaganda. Okay, does that make sense, guys? All right, so let's look at the evidence for this. All right, so this is the 1848 revolutions. So what happened was that because of peace, you have overpopulation, you have economic growth. Okay? That led to inequality, that led to corruption, that led to conflict between the bourgeoisie, the new rising powers, and the nobility, the status quo powers, okay? And that's why you have these revolutions throughout Europe, okay? So look at France, okay? This is France, you look at like all these places. This is happening all at the same time. Okay, everywhere. And again, different systems will respond differently. The only place in Europe that's basically spared these revolutions is England. And the reason why is that England has colonies where if you're not happy, you can go somewhere else, like Canada or the United States or Australia, New Zealand, okay? But you can leave. But everyone else is stuck where they are and they are fighting for more rights. And again, this puts the fear of God into the European nobility. Okay, for the longest time, they got along, they maintained peace, but now the bourgeoisie, the industrialists, the capitalists want to overthrow the regime. Okay, so what they do now is they sponsor the creation of communism to divide the capitalists, the middle class, and the workers against each other. Okay, to create the idea of class conflict. All right? Okay, so Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, all right, they write something called the Communist Manifesto. And this comes after the 1848 revolutions. Because after the 1848 revolution, they are absolutely convinced that Europe is ready for a global revolution, okay? And this is their agenda. And this is also a secret document because at this time, the communists are a secret society all around Europe. Okay, and I would argue that this was probably being funded by the nobility. Okay? Okay, so it calls for all abolition of property. All right? No more property. That's pretty extreme. So, because again, remember, the middle class wants to support socialism, but it cannot support communism. Socialism is just a redistribution of wealth. Communism is the abolition of wealth. Two different things. All right? All abolition of inheritance. Okay, again, you're middle class. You're like, I worked really hard to make this money. I want to give it to my children. Now I can't anymore, okay? This is pretty awful. All right, centralization of credit in the hands of the state, okay? By means of a national bank. Okay, and you think, okay, this sounds pretty extreme. But you know what? They already do this in capitalism. It's called the Bank of England, right? All right. So there are already a lot of similarities between capitalism and communism. Remember, the Bank of England is where all wealth around the world is stored, right? So a centralized bank and communist system, it's the same thing, right? Centralization of the means of communication, right? A party. Well, this is just the capitalist class, an oligarchy. Like, does it really matter if it's an oligarchy or a party? It's the same thing, really, right? Extension of factories and instruments of production owned by the state, equal liability of all work, combination of agricultural and manufacturing industries. All right, so this is the idea of creating a proletariat, all right, or manufacturing. And this is what capitalism is like, guys, okay? So at this time, most of the world is agricultural, feudal, and this calls for the creation of a manufacturing industrial economy. This is what capitalists want, right? Because that way they can better exploit people. Free education for all children. And you're like, oh, well, that's great, man. Free schooling. No, it's not. Because now you can brainwash them, right? This is brainwashing. So, you're like, okay, well, this agenda is communist. Well, if I'm a capitalist, I'm okay with this agenda, right? I'm happy with this agenda. What's wrong with this agenda?